Hello, everyone. Thank you for those who are joining us live on Zoom and for those who are watching later. And welcome to our 8Talks on elevating your brand with human holograms and WebAR. Today, we're so excited to talk about the development of the Siduri Holographic Experience, also known as the world's first consumer product holographic WebAR experience, and how brands and marketers can use holographic WebAR content to bring product packaging to life. I'm Megan Bute, Senior Growth Product Manager at 8th Wall, which provides innovative augmented reality technology to spatialize the web, no app required. And I'm honored to be joined today by Dante Love, Director of Digital Marketing at Jackson Family Wines, and Patrick Johnson, CEO and founder of Rock Paper Reality. Let's start with an introduction. Dante Love has been working both simultaneously in wine and marketing since 2011, when he started as digital marketer at Purple Wines. And in 2017, he joined Jackson Family Wines. As many as you know, Jackson Family Wines has over 40 brands and 53 wineries, the 9th largest producer in the United States. And most recently, they had a remarkable 4 wines on the Wine Spectator Top 100 Wine list of 2020. And Dante, can you tell us more about Siduri Wines and your role there?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. Thanks so much, first of all, for having me, Megan. It's a pleasure to be here, and always happy to chat about my work with Patrick. It's definitely some of my favorite stuff. So Siduri is a great story in the wine industry because it started with a guy, Adam Lee, who fell in love with wine and probably was not in the right place to have that passion. He started out in Texas. So he started out in Texas, caught the wine bug, ended up in California, started making wine, and really fell in love with Pinot Noir as a varietal specifically. And most wineries have like a focus, and they focus on a specific place, or they have a founder. We luckily have lots of places, but like a very specific auteur, if you think about the film analogy. And he just decided he wanted to explore every potential expression of Pinot. So starting in Oregon and then working his way all the way down the western coast of the US, just every interesting Pinot site he could find, he decided that he was going to do a single vineyard or a single appellation of that to really show that if he made all of these Pinots from Oregon to the Santa Lucia's Highlands exactly the same, the thing that would be different was going to be the place. So he just thought, if you're new to wine, this was going to be the best way to show you that the place the wine is grown has such a tremendous impact. Because as the winemaker, he was really trying to take himself out of the equation, which if you know Adam is probably hard to believe because he's such an over-the-top personality. So that was really what drew us to Siduri when we were thinking about WebAR, because here was someone who started in Texas, came out to California, built this brand in Siduri, and he really did it with his personality. He really did it by going from place to place, introducing himself, telling a story close to the story I just told, but probably much better, and getting people to start to pour it by the glass or getting people to try it. And obviously there's only one Adam, but we thought just in the most basic sense, like how can we get our winemaker to be in more than one place at once? And that's really where the idea started.
Very cool. Yeah, I like to hear Adam's story when he tells it. There's lots of wine involved.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Dante. And Patrick Johnson, he's no stranger to 8th Wall. He has been researching and advising augmented reality for over 7 years, working at early smart glass trailblazer ODG, and then later joining as co-organizer for the famous AWE Night, and then founding Rock Paper Reality in San Francisco as San Francisco CEO in 2017. Rock Paper Reality is an AR design agency that helps brands including Microsoft, Lenovo, Saatchi Arts, Saks Fifth Avenue, develop their AR strategy from initial concept to go-to-market deployment and beyond. Patrick, can you tell me more about Rock Paper Reality and your team?
Sure. So, and thanks, Megan, for the introduction and having me on the video chat. So Rock Paper Reality, we really have 2 different sections. We have the development side and then the consulting side. Sometimes they overlap. On the development side, we got our start in the development of app-based experiences, mostly for consumers, and with a real focus on advertising and marketing. over the last year, especially with the introduction of 8th and the great work you guys are doing. And as a quick aside, co-organizing AWE night, Tom and I were together at that time. And when 8th did their initial introduction about WebAR, we just looked at each other like, whoa, this is the future. So it was like definitely a light bulb aha moment. And shortly after that, I went back to the team and I said, we need to do WebAR. This is a big deal. This is going to change everything for marketing and advertising. So at that point, we shifted from an organization level, we started hiring, and we kind of just created all of our pitches, content, and the work we are doing around WebAR. So, quickly enters Dante with his fantastic concept, and anyways, we'll get to that, I'm sure, in a moment here. I'm getting ahead of myself, but yes, that was kind of the background of Rock Paper Reality, and today we really are focused on WebAR as our leading technology of choice.
Well, it's crazy how a simple moment can kind of really change your future so quickly. That's great. Let's see, before I show this video, sorry, Dante, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the background of this experience that we're going to show? And what was kind of the vision and objective Siduri Wines was trying to accomplish here?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my boss is David Bowman. He's the EVP of marketing. And as most EVP of marketing try to do, he's always looking at new ways to reach consumers. And specifically, we're trying to go after a luxury consumer. So I think AR has been something that's been on the precipice for a while that a lot of people have talked about. But I think it was really when we started to see more luxury brands start to pursue augmented reality experiences. Brands like BMW or Gucci, that it really started to present itself as an opportunity to reach a new group. And I feel like he was really the driving force behind us. I feel like I'll come out and say that I was skeptical when he came to us and said, we're doing AR, it's gonna happen, it's at the forefront, our consumers are ready, the technology's there, the cost is right, you guys have to find the right partner and bring this to life. And we went back and forth a few iterations about what could that potentially look like. And really, it was when we landed on Siduri and Adam as sort of the focal point, and then obviously found the partner in Rock Paper Reality, that's what really gave us confidence to move forward with it. I think all the conversations before we found Patrick's team were purely theoretical, but when they came with a way that we could deliver a frictionless experience to our consumers without an app environment, thanks to things like 8th technology, that's what really changed the game for us, because we didn't really think there was a huge market for getting people to download one more app. Obviously, I mean, phones are getting larger, but so are the apps that people have on them. So there's a limited amount of space there. And then also, as a digital marketer, I'm always looking at an experience I can deliver to somebody through an ad network. And obviously I can sell you an ad, but if I'm gonna put the energy into selling, I'd rather put the energy into selling you a Pinot Noir, not necessarily an app. So as close as I could get the consumer to the experience, we just felt like the timing was right. And obviously finding the right partners pushed it over the edge for us.
Oh, that's great. Well, Patrick, once you heard this brief from Dante, why did your team feel that WebAR and volumetric video or holograms was the right fit?
Well, yeah, so I think what was interesting about it is we had just started dabbling in the volumetric capture and WebAR integration that Microsoft had just pushed out. So I think you guys probably remember it was the soccer player that was in the studio, and we had access to it. We were playing around with it, and we're like, whoa, this is really amazing. We've got so much to learn on it still, but like, this is a big deal. And as soon as Dante came to us with the concept, and it must be in WebAR. And as we started talking, he's like, we kind of just teased out like, well, what about volumetric capture? It sounds like a really good, way of bridging this gap with bringing Adam to the world, since that's kind of like how Siduri got its start, with him knocking on doors and selling the wine. And then Dante's like, that's it. And I'm just like, ooh, we just sold ourselves like into a big project here. I was like, because we've never done it before. I don't think very many people had done it before. So we were certainly a bit nervous, but we had a really strong team. We got to like the 90% mark where we've tested everything out, and we're like, let's do it. And Microsoft was super supportive. And, you know, we kind of just started methodically going through the process of building it out, testing it. And anyways, it just all came together. But the two technologies intersecting at just the right place at the right time with the right concept that Dante brought us was a really perfect match.
So I'll start by saying that we basically had two overarching requests. One of them was that we didn't want to build an app, because we knew once we built an app, we'd have to maintain an app, we'd have to update an app. There's always a new iOS package coming out. We just didn't feel like we had the internal team to manage that. And the second piece, I really pushed my boss to give us some direction in terms of what he wanted to see at the end of this, because we knew it was going to be a significant investment. And I got him to say the words Star Wars chess, which I know it has a real name, but I don't know what it is. People cooler than me know. But essentially, it's where the little pieces are sort of, you move a piece and they walks over and they fight and then something wins. But just that idea of something happening on the table in front of you that comes to life in a way you wouldn't expect, that was what we were after. So we were looking for Appless, Star Wars chess, enter Patrick, and he knocked it out of the park.
I love that. Well, maybe we can talk more about the technology of this Star Wars chess. And first, I will have this big blank screen in front of everyone, and I'll show a little behind the scenes video.
It's always a challenge when you're the first at anything. There are no trails to follow, so you have to blaze them yourself. What truly makes the Siduri Holographic Experience so innovative is the fact that it's integrating so many cutting-edge technologies together into one single experience.
I was super excited when we got a chance to work on this project because I knew it was an opportunity to basically use new technology to make a deeper connection and engagement with people to the winemaker, to the wine, and do it in kind of a fun and interesting way.
The first word that popped into my head when I heard this was ambitious. It was ambitious because what they wanted to do had never been done before for a consumer product company and was no small feat.
The opportunity to do that for us at Microsoft and to have clients be so open and willing to try new things, that's really rewarding as somebody who works in new media technologies.
That's wild. I really think this has a real opportunity to change the consumer interaction with wine.
Every bottle now comes with a story from the winemaker, and that gives me a deeper and closer connection to me as a wine drinker.
I'm excited and can't wait for this to come to fruition.
So Patrick, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about the technology behind this volumetric capture. You know, how does it work?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, you've got a big, dome that's essentially like a green screen all around you. You've got 106 RGB cameras. You've got, I think there was 64 IR cameras there. You've got this diameter that you have to stay within, which is about 8 feet. And essentially the cameras are capturing a volumetric video of Adam. It's creating a mesh of him, and then has a texture layer that's on top of it. And they have their own proprietary file format that I believe that 8th Wall worked closely with them to be able to integrate for WebAR. And then ultimately, things where it can get interesting is when you're fusing the captures that come out of Microsoft with the 3D content, or overlaying textures on top of the captures themselves. Like we put in some little things that were kind of nerdy even on it with a couple of the experiences that were like cool for us, but nobody ever notices. So when Siduri, the kind of the voice assistant of the experience talks, the bottle lights up, the digital bottle, but also the bottle that Adam's holding lights up as well. And that was something that we had to do on top of the capture. And at the time that wasn't that common to be able to do the overlays of textures on him. So anyways, we were certainly just pushing all the different boundaries to try to figure out where it broke. And we found that part and then pulled back and did the stuff that worked.
That's incredible. It's a really, these pieces are really sharp. So getting, you have 106 cameras around you. Dante, can you tell me a little bit more about what it was like to get the founder, Adam Lee, actually like scanned in this process?
Oh yeah, a little trippy, gotta say. I mean, if you can imagine, there's a moment in Back to the Future where he like sees himself, his younger self, and it kind of freaks him out. I feel like Adam had a little bit of that when he walked back after the first scan, because there's a digital him on a screen that you can sort of spin around. You saw a little bit of that in the video. Like that was in real time. Like we had just taken those shots in the last couple minutes. So he just sort of walked off the set and like there he was. It was certainly an interesting experience. And we all got to get little scans of ourselves that were like 5 seconds long. So I have a little scan of me somewhere, but it was certainly unlike anything I've ever done before.
That's so cool. And kind of when you were filming these skits, what's the background and like how you chose these specific skits to do, and how did they connect to the product itself?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like we really wanted to focus on the ways that we felt like Siduri excelled that were really easy to understand. I mean, the first experience we landed on that we wrote in probably 5 minutes, the idea of this 90 points, right? It's one of the most awarded Pinot Noirs of all time. I just said it, it's a sentence. It's very easy to understand. And we just thought, like, how do we visualize that? Like if you were to stack up all the 90-point scores that Siduri ever got, like how big would that be? So just the idea of burying Adam under all of his accolades from the last 25 years was just a really exciting thing. And we thought it would be really fun to like build up that shape and then obviously have Adam disappear. So thinking about how awarded the brand was, we think about screw cap as an idea. So like, screw caps at this point are better for the wine. They're better for the environment. They're less expensive to produce. Most wines use cork out of heritage. Like there's historic significance associated with cork finish. And if you have certain wines that need a little bit of oxygen to age over time. So if you have a Pinot that you're going to age for, or a Cab that you're going to age for 30 years, for instance, like that would be a time to have a cork. But screw cap in most cases is the better choice. So we wanted to talk about that in sort of a fun, playful way. And then obviously just with the Bumbles and Tenders and Hinges of the world, since it was going to be on your phone, it was going to be a mobile experience, we decided to go a little tongue in cheek and do a version of the dating game with that. And just felt like we were able to play with a lot of the online dating that happens because Adam is so Pinot focused. There are so many Pinots to choose from. We wanted to say, there's a Pinot for you. No matter who you are, Siduri makes your perfect Pinot. So really, really playing with that idea that we have such a broad selection. So it was really highly awarded, great for the environment, cutting edge technology, and that we have something for everybody. Those are really the 3 big ideas we were trying to present with the 3 experiences.
Gotcha. And we'll throw a link in the show notes for everyone because they're all really fun to play with. I really like the corkscrew one. I don't want to give it away, but that was one of my favorites. And then Patrick, we just saw Adam Lee wearing this like crazy costume coming out. I'm thinking of all those pixels. What were some of the user experience and design choices you had to make in order to optimize this experience for the users?
Yeah, so actually that's a good question. And starting even from the wardrobe itself, we had to have probably, 3 to 4 different backups just going the first day to be able to go through the process of testing the materials, seeing how they capture, and making sure that nothing is too reflective, or it's usually, I think, with the IR sensors that kind of throws it off. But just making sure that even something like a trench coat where there's too much space in there, things aren't capturing correctly. So it's really just getting the right outfit for the studio. So that's even part 1, is just like figuring out what you're going to wear and make sure that the cameras like it. The second piece is, part of the process is that they're capturing, terabytes of data. It's a massive file Microsoft then does the post-processing and then compresses it down to something like anywhere between 20 to 50 megabytes. You know, I think some of the processes were down to like 20 megabytes, but then when we add our 3D models and everything into it, they can be fairly large file sizes. And so at the end of the day, WebAR is still kind of handled the same way you would with streaming. And you don't want the experience to freeze halfway through with Adam in a weird pose. So you have to make sure that it's loading up to a point where you know it's going to finish once the user starts the experience. And since we're pushing the limits of what you should do for file sizes, we had to make sure that the user was engaged and they were staying interacted, or they're interacting with it so that there wasn't much drop off. So things we did is we broke up the instructions into like 3 different panels. We had it, you know, everything from turn on your Wi-Fi, because, you know, holograms like Wi-Fi, and, you know, make sure you turn up your audio, and just did fun things with like the icons. So like rather than an hourglass for the loading, you know, bar, we had a wine glass that was filling up. And, you know, to Dante's earlier point about the 90-point scores, a lot of people don't know what the 90-point scoring system is. So we added in like a did you know, just to set the context of what they were getting. So along this way, we were doing these little things that were hopefully little tiny elements of interest and helping to educate the user before they got to it. And the entire time the experience is loading in the background. So by the time they actually drop they engage with it, it's already been loaded, it's ready to go. And there's not really this weird loading period where you're just sitting there waiting and then you're like, this is taking too long, and you drop off. So there was a lot of testing involved to get that piece right, but I think we got it pretty well, and I don't see very much drop off, even though I think we're doing probably like 4 to 5 times the what 8th Wall, you know, suggests from a file size perspective. So I guess, like, you know, that just kind of goes to show, like, with some clever UI and UX, you can still get people to play through the experience all the way to the end, but you just have to make sure that you're doing it smart.
Yeah, I really suggest folks look at those loading screens. I mean, it's such a small piece, but like having that little playful, you said the wine glass and just something to read at that time is such an engagement factor. I really like that. So kind of going back, this is a question to both of you. Maybe we'll start with Dante. What was one thing that you wish you had known, you know, from the start of this that you now know?
Oh, that's a great question. I feel like so much of this process was trying to put one foot in front of the other. Like we had absolute faith in Patrick and his team, but we all started this knowing that like we were going to have to figure some things out to get from A to B. And then we didn't know what those answers were yet. That we booked our time, we got our capture, we got our little atom, and then we were going to figure out how we were going to fit something like that in the experience in this frictionless way. So I would say, I mean, Patrick talked about it a little bit. The coolest thing about it, obviously, is the animated atom, but that was also the most difficult thing to work with or work around because it was such a large file size, and because it was so large, it did limit the number of ways we could promote it. I'm sure that'll change over time as more and more places allow for ads that are bigger, or we find better ways to compress it. But just having a clearer sense of what we would be able to do with the finished file, given how big it was going to be at the beginning, probably would have been helpful.
That's interesting. Yeah. Patrick, same question. Like, what's one thing you wish you had known from the start that you know now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, honestly, there was just so many learnings involved because that was our real first time deploying an end-to-end volumetric capture experience on WebAR. I mean, there was just even things from, I can't pinpoint the one, but I'm just even thinking about stuff where it's like, you know, managing the new file formats and understanding things like from a compression perspective, like, how do you get the final atom to be able to look as photorealistic as possible, but have the lowest, like the highest amount of compression as possible so that it performs the best? And we did so much back and forth and work with Microsoft just to get the compression just right, to where they're happy with it. And, you know, as they would say, like, it doesn't start to look crunchy. And it maintains just that high fidelity. And so that part took quite a bit of time, just getting the sweet spot just right around the compression. So, and some of the techniques that we were both doing ourselves. Anyways, like we figured it all out in the end, but that part I think probably took a lot of back and forth, surprisingly longer than we expected.
Yeah, maybe crunchy is a new WebAR term we will be saying in the future. Dante, you kind of hinted at it, but with this ad strategy, but what were some of your go-to-market strategies that you had? And then how did WebAR kind of play into that?
Well, I was laughing because we had a lot of ideas that involved, you know, a lot of in-person tastings and, you know, really showing it to people in like a one-to-one, very intimate setting. And then also like we were going to preview this at our big national sales meeting for our whole team. And then 2020 happened. We got really lucky. We filmed this in February. And then everything shut down in March. So like we had like just put Adam in the can, and then like we couldn't do a lot of the things we had planned to do with this. So I mean, we're lucky we have a world-class public relations team. They definitely hit the ground, got us in Forbes, got Adam on ABC, set up experiences across the country with people virtually, which is in some ways helpful for an experience like this, especially as the pandemic wore on. I think people were more and more excited to have, you know, positive, interesting entertainment content that was different. So in one sense, we had a go-to-market strategy that we had to throw out. But in the other sense, I feel like the reception for this experience was greater because there was just more attention to digital spaces, to digital screens when it was finally ready for prime time. So I hinted at it a little bit. The other side of it is obviously going to be our paid strategy. And that's where we did work with Rock Paper Reality on the development, but like Patrick said, they also have a consulting arm. So their lead consultant, G10, was really instrumental in helping us put together a plan for how we were going to use this in a paid marketing context. And really we landed on Unity, the Unity ad network, as the best opportunity for this because they had native AR support. So that was a place where once we had developed these experiences, we were able to create a slimmed down, a smaller, a less large experience with less actual video content, but still use augmented reality, still use the product in an engaging way and deliver that in a targeted way to people who are on the Unity ad network. So it was really the 1-2 punch. We had our PR teams sort of blasting it out to their network and getting some really good feedback there. And then also we have our audiences. We know who our wine drinkers are. We know who our Pinot targets are, and we were able to use the Unity ad network and a smaller version of the AR experience to deliver it right to them natively in app in full AR, which was pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible to think that you had this experience in mind prior to the quarantine. It just kind of like really lent itself to this time. It's pretty remarkable.
That's Dante. It's he's the visionary of the group. So he saw it all coming.
I prefer lucky, but I'll take visionary.
And Dante, like what have you learned since the experience has been in market?
Oh yeah, the consumer reception of this has been fantastic. I mean, if anything, the feedback has been like, we want more. It should be longer. You know, how do we get more at him? What else can he do? Like what, I mean, you heard Patrick say multiple times that they were pushing all the limits they can push. And of course, as soon as people see it, they're like, great, you know, how is it longer? Can we do 10 minutes? Can Adam run around on the table? And it's like, well, guys, we have 8 feet. These files are really huge. We can't deploy them. We're doing all these things just to load this on your phone. But I would just say the appetite for the content has just been absolutely voracious. I feel like if we had 20 of these, people would have eaten them up. And what we've seen on the website, like the AR section of our website has been the leading content driver for since it launched. So like it's higher than the wines page. So like people usually go to Siduri in search of wine information. Right now they're going to Siduri in search of an AR experience. Like that is brand new for a beverage that predates biblical times. So the idea that we were able to jettison ourselves to the top of a technology conversation out of essentially nowhere has been just an absolute boon to the brand. I mean, it's been really positive to bringing more attention to these fantastic wines, getting more people to try them. And I think it's going to be something that's absolutely critical to our strategy for Siduri going forward.
Yeah, it sounds like, wine industry is really embracing AR.
Absolutely.
Yeah, why do you think augmented reality and wine are such a good fit?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like so much of what I get to do every day, like I live in wine country, I get to spend time with Adam, I get to spend time with our winemakers, I get to see the vineyards. So many people don't. Like our average wine consumer, if you live in Virginia, you live in Texas, you live in Ohio, maybe you make it to wine country 1 or 2 times in your life. And that's a bucket list trip. So the idea that we're able to bring people, because it's really, it turns out that wine only grows in like beautiful Mediterranean climates. Like it just so happens that wherever you grow wine, you probably want to be swimming or something. So for a lot of people, it's really idyllic. Like they really want to travel. And especially in a time where there is no traveling happening, the idea that we're able to deliver that sort of experience to those people in Virginia, to those people in Ohio, to those people in Texas, I think it's really cool. And I think we're able to do it in a way that feels more authentic and more real than just a video. Obviously, there are a lot of videos, and I think that'll continue to be a great medium. But to do it in a new way for something that I think people are really hungry for and don't have a lot of opportunities to engage with, it's an itch that hasn't been scratched well. And I feel like we were able to do that with the Siduri experience.
Yeah,
If I can add to that.
Go ahead.
Oh, I really loved one of the things that we learned when we were doing some of the deployment strategy type of work for it. And, I think wine in so many ways is something that you do communally. And I think people love to be able to bring a bottle of wine home and share with the family how cool this bottle of wine is, beyond that just tastes amazing. Or when you're picking up a bottle of wine to take to your dinner party, what's going to get people amazed by how great it tastes, but also have a fantastic party trick to go along with it. And so really one of the things that this does too is just you think about the network effect of people going in and wowing their friends and family and the people that are closest to them about why this experience is so cool. And then they want to go and take it to their next work party or take it to their next function. And so people kind of then get this strong word of mouth relationship to the wine that you wouldn't get just necessarily by taste alone. For some people you would, but there's other people that want something new to be able to share. So I really think that from an AR perspective as well, as it's giving people another reason to share a great bottle of wine with their friends and family and coworkers and colleagues, and also just share online with on social, right? Because inside of the app, you can capture it, you can film it, you can share it with your friends. So it really just comes down to just sharing it, sharing a great wine with, the people around you that you love. And I think that's something that the experience does pretty well.
Yeah, it really contextualizes it and adds like a lot of engagement, the WebAR plus wine. That's a great point. I love that word of mouth element. And so Patrick, we were talking about, this was a volumetric experience where, we were focusing on a world effect with a virtual wine bottle. But since that time, your team has demonstrated that what is possible with 8Talks curved image targets, which trigger and track against a physical bottle. Maybe you can tell me what's possible with web-based cylindrical image targets, and I can maybe show it after.
Yeah, absolutely. So once again, we really just wanted to push the boundaries of what was possible here. And so, I think in the past, you'd see bottles of wine that were kind of like these living labels where you'd have some kind of motion graphics and stuff overlaid on top of it, which are definitely cool, but we wanted to take it a step further. And so we wanted to create something that was both 3D modeled, that had a full occlusion layer that went on side of it, that literally just fused the digital and the physical world together as closely as possible. And they'll also kind of added this layer of whimsy and playfulness to it, which kind of lends itself to AR, because it is something that people often use the word magical, right? Because it is kind of taking something that isn't supposed to be in your physical world, and it's adding it there. But the place that we often really like to try to get to is not just overlaying digital information on physical objects. We really like to kind of place the two together and give almost that X-ray effect of being able to see inside of it, have things pass through it, have atom come out of an actual, bottle itself. So with the curved image tracking that you have, like that Eighth Wall offers now, it's like that's a great way of being able to do that, and then just up the ante of what's possible with AR, and just once again increase that surprise and delight that we really want to deliver through marketing and advertising.
Yeah, and I'm going to show this. This is, I don't know who the visionary was behind this one, but this is one of my favorite experiences to watch, and I can't wait to have a Siduri bottle in my hand so I can actually play around with this one. So let's see if this works out. I will share my screen. And
one other thing I wanted to add to this too is it has the wow factor, but the other part that's really important to it is just think about how much brand equity you have with that. How much time are you just sitting there staring at that brand? And at the end of the day, what you want people to do is when they go to a restaurant or go to a shelf to go buy a bottle of wine, you want that brand retention to pop back in your head. And so when you're just literally just looking at this and you're in the dopamine is being released because you're seeing something novel and you're creating these positive associations with the brand, like when you walk down the aisle, you are going to remember what a bottle of Siduri looks like. And which goes back to like, not only is it important when you see it on the bottle itself, but going back to the video and people sharing it, it's still incredibly cool. Just you're still driving that brand awareness just by even watching the video itself. So
yeah, exactly. And Dante, maybe you could explain or expound a little bit more on that. Like, why is making the product the star of the show so important with augmented reality?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you've been to a grocery store and walked down a wine aisle, or you've been to a restaurant and looked at a wine list, it's intimidating. There are a lot of options for wine, and there are a lot of good options. So if you are a brand and we have a story, we have a distinctive founder, but if you don't know those things and you're just shopping and you're looking to pick up a bottle, say for Valentine's Day, you're probably not going to stop by and read the back label of every bottle, right? You're probably going to try to first filter based on price, like what is in the $30 to $50 range you're looking to spend because you want to have a nicer meal. If you have a varietal preference, say you like Pinot, that narrows it a little bit. But even Pinots in the $30 to $50 category, there's still quite a few to choose from. So when you're looking at the wall of wine, as we like to call it, or you're looking at that list at a restaurant, we really want Siduri to jump to the top because it has that brand association. And it's going to get that brand association probably not from one Eighth Wall talk and probably not from one AR experience, but it's going to happen over a sustained period of time with multiple touch points where you said like, oh, I've heard about this brand. I know that the screw cap is a great feature. I know that it is highly regarded. I know that this is a Pinot specialist. I know that they have multiple Pinots to choose from. So maybe I want to try one appellation and then try another. And that's something that takes time. And that's really my job as a marketer, is to create that cadence, that demand building cadence, where we're constantly finding new, different, alternate, concurrent ways to reach people, so that when they get to that wall of wine, it's, wait, I'm not looking for things in this category, I'm looking for Siduri.
That's a great point. And maybe I know you're a sommelier, but maybe you could tell us what appellation is.
Oh, sure. I apologize. Yeah, appellation, it's a specific place. So AVA is an American viticulture area. Those are places that they put in long applications, they pay lots of money, and then they get like a distinctive sort of grid on the map. So when you look at a bottle of wine, a lot of wines will just say California. California is an appellation. It can be grapes from anywhere inside the state. But as you get to more and more expensive wine, the spaces they can come from are smaller. If you think about supply and demand, the smaller the space, the fewer bottles you can possibly make, so the more it's going to cost, because it's literally rarer, right? If you only had from one small place in California versus the whole state, that one small place is going to be much harder to pull from. So an appellation just speaks to, typically an appellation has it has a characteristic, so like the soil, it could be high elevation, it could be what's planted there, it could be the marine layer, but all of these things affect how desirable this place is. And yeah, it's just a fancy way of saying or identifying a specific place that we pull specific grapes from. And obviously some places are going to be great for Pinot, some are great for Chardonnay, some are great for Cab. And those are things that people get to know over time, and they're highly sought after.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, now that's another word I'll use after today's session. So really
Absolutely.
We've been talking about this great experience, but Dante, ultimately, how are you able to measure the success of this project?
Yeah, for us, this was really a pilot. This was the first time, obviously you heard Patrick say, this is the first time anyone in the world did something like this. So we went into it thinking like, how can we compare this to traditional video? Because that's really on a cost basis. That's what we'd be competing with in terms of advertising. That we could have shot a traditional video where we had Adam saying all the same things, obviously not in the same way, that we could have promoted on something like a YouTube to someone. And we really, when you look at YouTube promotions, it's really like cost per view. And YouTube's pretty good for that. A view is 30 seconds. You have a longer amount of time potentially to engage with the consumer. And the experience we created was about 30 seconds. So it's a really healthy one-to-one. But if you look at YouTube, typically the click-through rate is going to be almost zero, because most people don't leave YouTube. They'll watch a video and then they'll stay. Whereas on our experience, we saw a lot more engagement, because there's a lot more for people to actually do. You talked about the corkscrew experience. We don't want to give it away, but that's obviously one that's very engaging. We saw people actively engaging with the ad in a way they never could with the video. And then there's an additional follow-up, which is cool because it's one in a series, that we're actually sending people to, another one of the experiences that they can potentially engage with. So for us, there was the opportunity to engage more fully, because it's not passive engagement, it's active engagement. And there's this sort of daisy chain effect that once people do it, there's an opportunity to do it again. And what we've seen is a lot of people coming to the website for one experience. We see a lot of returning traffic. So we see a lot of people coming back for experiences 2 and 3. And historically, when you show someone a video, maybe they'll watch another one of a series, but we've just seen a lot more engagement with the ad itself, in addition to the experiences, in addition to the other experiences over time, that for us really made this worth it.
That's really cool. That type of engagement is so hard to come by. So really
Absolutely.
Here, yeah. I'm going to ask 2 more questions, and then I'm going to take some questions from the audience. And this is to both of you. And maybe we'll start with Patrick. How is augmented reality and WebAR evolving CPG, consumer packaged goods? To those who know.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. We had one of the largest label makers in the world reach out to us, and they said, you know what, labels aren't enough. We want to offer our customers more, and it's because our customers are demanding it, right? And so I think that was the first time when you're starting to see, the bottoms up pressure on these bigger, holding companies, these bigger organizations from the, and the reason the customers are demanding it, which in this case would be another wine brand or a cereal brand or whoever, but it's because the actual consumers are demanding it now. And so it's kind of this percolation that's gone up to where you're getting this pressure from the big tech giants, and then ultimately from some of the people that are even creating the labels that go on the brands themselves, because they want to offer a package and bundled solution. So, what it comes down to is that if you look at all the stats out there, consumers will rank AR experiences more favorably than they do traditional video. There's higher engagement, higher retention, sometimes 4x more retention than you have with a video. And so I think what it's suggesting is that the brands that are investing in WebAR and in AR experiences today are not only learning, but they're seeing the benefits from the benchmarks that were initially set. And so they're reinvesting in it. And then the competitors are seeing the companies that are doing it, and they want in on it. So it's essentially it's all starting to come together, and the pressure is building in the right places.
That's so interesting. Yeah, Dante, same question. How are you seeing like augmented reality and WebAR impacting the CPG?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's a great question. And I think it's important for us to remember that there's only one consumer, and maybe one is oversimplification, but the person having an AR experience with our brain isn't just comparing us to our competitors. They're not just saying, oh, this is really cutting edge for the wine industry. They're comparing it to everything they buy, every experience they have. So once we start down this path in CPG overall, it affects everybody. I mean, the example we talk about a lot is if you were to launch a video service today, people would compare it to Netflix. They wouldn't give you any slack for saying like, well, they've only been around for a year. Netflix has 10 years of data. They've had a lot of time to optimize. People say, well, I could choose this or I could choose Netflix. I can just go back to the industry leader. So immediately the bar is raised to the highest level. It's not the lowest common denominator because everyone has access to the same things. So I think as an industry, we're constantly being pushed from all sides, not just from other people in the wine industry, to do things that are novel, do things that are interesting, and do things that command people's attention. And I feel like, especially an industry like wine, which is sometimes slower to adapt to technology, it's really been an opportunity for us to distinguish ourselves against our competitors in our own space, but also make a name for ourselves across CPG, because that's not necessarily a way we thought before, but I think it's always a way our consumers think.
And I know we're short on time, but there's one other thing that you brought up that I wanted just to piggyback on, and it's the analytics part of it too, where this is like the first time you're able to take your offline users and be able to capture the analytics and bring them online. So before, people interacting with your product, you don't really know how they're interacting with it, but now you're able to capture that, create cross sessions, be able to understand, are they interacting in the digital world, then also in store, on product, and you're able to start creating this rich data around the customers that is allowing you to direct your marketing dollars and advertising dollars accordingly.
that's really important, and you get that ROI right away. So we have a bunch of questions. I know we're not going to get to all of them, but we're going to try our best. I think this is one maybe like back up a little bit, but maybe Dante, you could tell us, how did users really start to, like, what's their first, how did they start to engage with this experience? Yeah, just maybe you can talk about how consumers approached this.
Yeah, I mean, I think with curiosity is the best answer, because it was new, because it was novel, because there was nothing quite like it. Like Patrick said, there have been other augmented reality experiences in the wine industry, but they were nothing like this. So the idea that we were going to bring the winemaker to life in front of us, I think people were kind of like, what is that? How does that happen? How does that look? And then when we told them, all we have to do is send you a link, or we have to do is scan a QR code, I think curiosity was immediately able to be capitalized on. And that was really the power of the frictionless experience with WebAR, with Eighth Wall, obviously with all the work Patrick did with Microsoft to make sure the experience loaded properly, went off without a hitch, functioned really quickly. But I think there was a lot of curiosity, and I think how easily it was to get into the experience made it really easy for people to get a little closer to us, which is what we wanted.
Yeah, I love the curiosity, definitely drives folks in. And Patrick, you've worked in AR for a long time. So how did you make it clear that the QR code needs to be scanned? And then afterwards, where to target the camera for the user experience?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I can't remember the exact verbiage, but it is very important that you have to have a call to action on the QR code that says scan here. And I think we had some, we went back and forth on the language for it, but it's letting the user know that you're not going to go to a website, you're going to something that is augmented reality, and it's far more special, and it's going to be worth your time to pull out your phone and scan this QR code. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what you really want. And a lot of what we did too was starting out with was digitally. So it was also through the hyperlinks, it's through social, it was all the redirects from email and web pages. And so making sure that people even knew to click the right hyperlinks to go to the right page to be able to engage with it was also a piece of that. And then what was the second part of the question, or did I answer that?
This is about how did you kind of point users to the right place to put the target image, after they've opened the AR experience?
Yeah, so I think, so we went back and forth even on the infographics, like I think where it was point your phone at a flat surface versus like just find a flat surface, because I think people were literally setting their phone on a flat surface waiting for a hologram to come out of it because they just don't know. So it's really just even getting like the descriptions, the matter, and the infographics matter. Otherwise, if you give people an option to get it wrong, they will. And it happens time and time again. And part of that's just the usability testing and just watching people when you get an experience, like where are they pointing their phone? What are they doing? What are they like raising an eyebrow around? And just really trying to understand like, what part of this experience don't they get, or are they getting lost on?
I also think to the first part of the question, how do we get people to scan it? Patrick talked about us going back and forth. I feel like the marketers in us wanted to be like, scan for the Siduri Holographic Experience, that you'll never forget, something like this. I think we landed on scan for AR. That's because it's just like, we'll just tell them what it is. This is scan for augmented reality. And I would also say that we, again, got lucky because of the pandemic, because there are probably some people on this call right now who experienced going to a restaurant, and a lot of menus now you launch with QR code. I check my daughter into school every day with a QR code. I just feel like they're a lot more in common usage than they were even 8 months ago. So we really were helped by the increase in usage and how familiar QR codes had gotten across the world. And we were just able to piggyback on that. But I agree, it would have been a much bigger challenge had that not been the case.
Yeah, and there was a question about, was there any end user reluctance to try the experience? And so maybe, I don't know if you saw that in the user testing, or maybe
that wasn't our experience. I mean, it's certainly not what the data bore out. It seemed like maybe people were reluctant, but there certainly were a large swath of people who were more than comfortable using it. Yeah. So that was not the experience we had, that people were reluctant.
And I think one thing that you just kind of going back to it one more time is the promotional value of the videos and the captures that people are sharing and that are being shared online. And so there is this kind of tier of people where there's even if you go to like a demo room or something, there'll be the people that actually are trying the demos themselves, and then the people that are kind of watching it happen over their shoulder, and then they're saying, oh, I got it, I understand it. But they're not the ones that actually engage with it. So there are these different, I think, tiers of engagement, but the promotional value, like there's a ton of impressions on this thing. And when the news is sharing it and you're still getting the eyes on it, and it's just a different, I would say probably value that you would add to the eyes and their engagement with it. So
I would say I had a thought while Patrick was speaking about the idea of reluctance. I would say if there was reluctance we found about anything, it was just the number of permissions it takes. Because it says like give access to the camera, give access to the gyroscope. We're obviously an alcohol beverage brand, so then there's an additional permission to say I am 21 to experience this. So if we saw a drop off, it was somewhere usually in that space. But once people got through to the experience themselves, I mean, again, the QR code got them to those 3 questions, and assuming they got past those 3 questions, usually we saw people return and experience more than one.
Come back to the other ones, as you said earlier. We had a big question about, and Dante, I don't know if you can share all of this, but like, what was the investment in this, like time and money?
Oh, that is a good question, and I can't share it, but I will say that for us, like the money was never the point. You know, like we were looking to build Star Wars chess, and we were looking to really tell the story of Adam and Siduri, and we did that. And again, to my boss's credit, it was never an object that he brought up. It was never how much is it going to cost. It was more, what's this going to mean for the consumer? How are we going to tell the stories that are important to Adam, that are important to Siduri, and how are we going to reach that consumer in a way they'll never forget? I mean, that was really the focus for us.
Yeah, makes sense. Patrick, we have a technical question. What is the optimal time range in terms of volumetric video length that you found?
Oh, I mean, it really depends. I mean, like, you know, as Dante mentioned earlier, I don't think any of the well, I take that back. I think we actually got to like 45 seconds or so, maybe with the draw one. Like that one was actually, we pushed the limits of what you should do, like in terms of WebAR, but it worked out totally well with what we did from a user experience standpoint. But I think just trying to shoot for like 30 seconds or so is a good range, like on the high end. And I guess it's like, what, you know, how long does it take to tell your story? And it's if you can tell your story in 5 seconds and land the same impact, then do it, you know. But most of the time that's not the case. So don't add additional words in there if they're not required, but make sure you have a you know, a concise story that's compelling, and you know, and you know, that's a probably good starting point.
Yeah. Use as much as time as you need, it sounds like. Okay, we're getting a lot of questions. We kind of answered this before, Dante, about how you ended up promoting the WebAR experience, and I think this will be our last one.
Yeah, so we promoted it mostly with the Unity AR, native AR ad type. So we created a smaller, like a less large file size that was able to be delivered directly in app. So we were able to target, you know, obviously 21 and older. We have some demographic targeting that we do. We have some people who we know tend to buy Pinots at our price point that we wanted to deliver these things to. So we were able to zero in pretty tightly on an audience of people that we wanted to make aware of Siduri, and then we were able to natively deliver a version of the AR experience that way. There's some other spaces we explored. Facebook does have native AR support, but it is not for AR video. It's only for a single frame. So we explored that. And then we're looking at like Verizon Media Native recently rolled out AR support. So that'll be something we think about for the Siduri experience in the future. But in terms of like paid promotions, there aren't that many marketplaces that did what we felt to be like did the experience justice. Like we could have taken a video of the experience. We showed you guys the cool behind the scenes video, but we really felt like the aha moment of experiencing it was Adam coming to life on your table, not just Adam coming to life on a table. So we really wanted to focus on marketplaces that allowed us to bring that to people, as opposed to just a version of it that someone else was able to do. So that's how we promoted it.
It seems like you guys got a lot of PR as well from this.
We did. We were very lucky to be the first. And again, all the credit in the world to Patrick and his team for busting the door down on that one.
Thanks,
Nice.
Dante.
Well, we're at time, but if anyone wants to contact y'all, Patrick, maybe you want to let folks know how to reach you?
Sure. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So if someone just searches Patrick Johnson with augmented reality on it, I'm sure to pop up there. And then also on Twitter, just Rock Reality, and that or at Rock Reality, and that's our Rock Paper Reality Twitter handle. And those were probably the two best ways to contact me. Or you can email me directly at pat@rockpaperreality.com.
Okay, great. We'll put that in the show notes as well. And Dante, same question to you if anyone wants to.
Yeah, I mean, I want you to just type like Dante and augmented reality into LinkedIn, and I hope it's me. I don't think so though. So, but I'm also active on LinkedIn with Patrick. We usually share a lot of stuff back and forth. So he's much more of a celebrity than I am. If you're able to find him, you'll probably find me by proxy, but that's a great way to reach out.
And I think Siduri, if you're interested in this bottle of wine, you can go to siduri.com. There, if you're in the Bay Area, I saw it at Whole Foods and Molly Stone's and Bevmo, and shout out to my favorite Farmhouse Thai restaurant. They're there too. So great. It's a great way to find the bottle. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm Megan at 8thwall.com. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Dante and Patrick. Really enjoyed this conversation today. And we'll be sending out this link to everyone in an email a few days later.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for having us, Megan. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. It's been super fun.
Yeah, I could talk for another hour. There's so many questions. All right. Thanks so much, everyone.
All righty.
Cheers, guys.
Have a good rest of the day.